Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. So, continuing on our journey, like we were writing some code, right? But OBS uh, OBS didn't. My microphone did not respond that well. So, um, yeah. So this is basically the my playground that I was trying to run, and then the moment we build it, right? I don't know why does it take so much time. Let's try switch to an online one. Mm, I guess an online one should be okay. Yeah. So till that time that is getting built, let's see this online thing. So now you come here, you write making a function, and then say this is function A, and then I'm going to return some value, right? So then let my return value be an integer, and then I'm going to say return. This is going to be my return, and I'm going to return 10 over here. And then now I'm going to call here. I'm going to come, and at the moment you run it, so there is some, yeah, let's say, uh, the result of call is unused. Or you can, what I can do here is I can say print. Oh yeah, even in my Swift I've got the output. So yeah, so basically this is 10, and this backslash 10 is basically by default, right? It tries to move to the next line. So now let's try writing an asynchronous function. So the moment we write the way we write an async is you go function, then you say function A, and then you say, and then here you write in async, and then you do say, and then you write the return statement. So this is going to be my return values. Return value is going to be 10. You go return to 10. Now the way we are going to call this function is, so now this is an async, right? So there is any blocking thing that is going to happen, so we need to in that cooperative pool we need to give up that task, right? So the way we would call is basically we will yeah, we would have to do the await thing, right? It's because this has to be a cooperative pool, so I'm going to do print, and then I'm going to await, and then to after await you are going to have the function call being made. So let's say, or let's not have the same function name, let's make it say b, and then you come in here, change this thing to say function instead of a we're going to be, this is function b, make the call. And now let's cannot find function b in scope. The function is defined right above. Let's no. Then we're doing a wait. We are calling the function b. Now why does it not cannot find function b in scope? Why? Oh, the name is different. This is, let's change this to function b, and now let's try running code. Even this gives an instant result, right? I mean, the result is comes instantly, right? The only part is basically while calling, we have added a wait. Oh no. Yeah, let's have this thing here. Now, uh, we'll see fetch things later on. Now, how to create and call an async function? Um, Using async function in Swift is done two steps: declaring the function, then being async, and then we call it using await. If you're building an app that wanted to download a whole bunch of temperature readings, calculate the average temperature. The downloading data should be done async. So we need to decide like what should be done asynchronous. So we have to mention that in the code itself, that do this thing asynchronously. Now doing lots of mathematics. Actually, so now the point comes. The point he's talking about is where should we use async? Okay, so let's have this thing and let's say what happened. Or did I extend my? Oh yeah, I guess I did that. And then what can So yeah. So now uh, our job is now to identify when to use async. So like when to use async. So we need to identify this. The first is basically downloading from internet should always be done asynchronously. The first is basically downloading data from internet. So you download data from internet. Now doing lots of mathematical. So if it's but if it's taking, for example, we have a complex mathematical operation. So complex mathematical operation, and again we are going to do this. The third is basically uploading data. Uploading data to the internet. Again, if the internet speed is slow, then this is going to be an issue, right? Okay. Now, so what if we had too many awaits? I mean, okay. Like, what if can we have multiple awaits? Yes. No, okay. Now let's see what to actually use those functions. We will need to write a force function that calls them one by one and then prints the response. This function also needs to be async because in theory the three function is called suspend, and so might it also need to be suspended. I'm not going to do the actual network encoder. Now using async, okay. Now if you are uh, declaring the function using async is divided into way declaring the function. Yeah, that we saw, right? So what if we need to write an async code? So an async code can be written only asynchronous function. Is that what he's trying to say? Yeah, the await keyword is going to be the person that is going to be responsible to do that. Okay, now let's see the differences between the functions, right? So just by marking synchronous, we are not going to. It may or may not do synchronous. I mean, it's not a guarantee that it will be asynchronous. Um, okay, now async is a now let's see. Now let's type something. Async. So first is basically async has to be function type. Just by writing async doesn't mean that we are going to do asynchronous. Um, so just by it does not imply that we might be in async code. The third is basically whenever we are going to call, we need to await. So that await needs to be written when we call. Await needs to be written. Now there is one more rule that says writing an async function can only there is one more rule, right? Now you can only call an async function first. Now there are how can we call async? Okay. The fourth point is calling async, right? So there are two methods. Either we can call in the task block, or we can use another async function to make the call. Now using await, okay. Uh, Now if okay, you can combine it with throws as well if you're trying to do. Okay, now the next rule, that is, what if we have an async function that throws an error? So throwing an error. If I'm doing it through like if I'm throwing an error and then the function definition itself, I need to mention. So this is basically for async, right? So I'll have async written here, and then I'll be writing here throws. Oh, did I put the yeah? And then I'm going to say what value I'm returning. So this could be say string. The next thing that we need to do is basically calling, right? So how to call? This is do, and then we do then we do await, and here is when you make that call. So this is basically for do catch, right? So this is for the error. So because we are writing an function that is going to throw an error, we need to do this. Or the other version is you can do try await. Instead of do, you can have a try await thing. Now a main actor, we'll see that later on. But the thing is, in our playground we don't use anything like that, right? We just call it by await. Now how to call async throwing? Oh yeah, we saw that. Now what calls the first async? Now you can only call async from other async because they might need to suspend themselves. Everything that is waiting for them. Then this leads to a chicken egg and egg problem, right? So we need to call the main function. There are three main approaches you will find doing so. Okay. Now, when we are having an async, so yeah, we said here that we need async needs to be written async needs an async thing, right? Now, see, now what we are going to do here is basically so when to call the first async is what we are looking for. Now, first is a simple command line programs. There are three ways to do it. So we have three ways to achieve that. The first is basically at the rate main attribute. So first is basically you do at the rate main. Now declare your main method to be async. This means your program will immediately launch into an async so that you can call. Uh, okay. First in simple command line programs using the at the rate main attribute, you can declare your main to be async. Uh, this means your program will immediately launch into an async function, so you can call. There is okay. Let's see this approach. What's happening here? Uh, let's study this in little bit. Oh, so what he's trying to say is, uh, so async can be called only from an async, right? Now you're absolutely in command line. We can mark our entry point to be the main. Oh, so when we mark it entry point, what does the compiler say? Like it will start the execution from this entry point itself. Is that what it's trying to say? The moment it sees that at the rate main, that will like we need to mark the entry point, right? Because okay, so now there is a problem right over here. I guess what he's trying to say. And there is an issue right with async. So if you call async, you will go. If you call async, we will be in how to say await, right? We'll have to await or be suspended, right? Now let's see what is going to happen here. Now, so when we write at the rate main, we are giving an indication to jump directly in and work on the async function. So we are saying that this is our main code, right? Or the entry point to our main is from here. You directly jump in and start executing the code. Now without async or main, you do have to When we say at the rate main, we are basically saying that this is our main entry point, right? That is at the rate main. Now the next way is that we have is so it directly comes in and starts working on the async. The other yep, this is calling the so this is when we have async inside async, right? So if I await the outer async, then I'm in a problem. That is only one issue, right? The second is basically the second method is using a task block, right? Now using the task, we write simply the source code, and then it is going to work on its own. So second is basically using task. Now this is task modifier. So using the oh, what happened to my, isn't this charged? Now, okay. Second is basically inside the task block, inside the task modifier. So this is our task modifier, right? So we can call the async function here as well. Now the next way is basically yeah, is there any performance cost? Yes, because the moment we make an us, so the next thing that we are going to discuss is the performance. Is there any performance cost? Yes. Basically, when we do await, we are basically going to do the suspension of that program, right? So if you have more number of suspensions, then you have more empty threads that are available, because these threads, the moment they come to know that they need to suspend, they'll stop, and then they'll try to pick other work from the task. So that is a very like what we have multiple switching, like multiple async thing. So that's what, if you have multiple multiple async operations, like It should be only used for those operations for that for in which we need some sort of asynchronous behavior. If you're just doing simple memory math or reading, then using that in an async await is not a very good option. If you're switching back and because for example when you're switching between back and forth between threads, so that is again not a very good way to write our code, right? So there is a significant performance if you have too many asyncs being written in the code. So, and that await is going to, so basically that await is present at runtime, remember. How to create and use async. So in just okay, so there is a significant performance cost, right? So you can say there is a, I don't know, it works for some time and then doesn't work. Now, okay. So there is a significant performance price that we need to pay here. If we have too many too many awaits being done, then there is a significant cost to it as well. Now, so first, so we can have asynchronous functions, right? In Swift, we can make async functions. The other thing that we can make is basically we can make our properties also async. So we can have properties. Properties can also be async. Now, uh, so now by properties, now this is basically computed properties in our getter and setter, right? I'm not sure. This is basically so we can have async properties as well. Now, just as Swift functions can be asynchronous, computed properties also can be asynchronous. Now, attempting to access them must also be done using await. Or if you want to throw an error, then we need to do the throw error thing when we are computing the property. Okay. So we can say properties. Now, these are basic. When I talk about properties, specifically we are talking about computed properties, right? So they can this can also be async in nature. So computed properties can also be async. So we can say again the way to access this will be using, we need to make sure that we are doing that wait thing over here. How to call an async function using async let. Now sometimes you want to run several operations at the same time, then wait for their results. The easiest way to do is using async let. So there is something called as async let. Okay, what is going to happen here? We'll see. Okay, so there is one more way to do async and async. Now, let's perform operations using both await and async. But although they both run something async, they don't quite run the same. Await waits for the work to complete so that we can read its result. Async, so there is some. Okay, there is one more way to achieve. This is like the more modern way to have async being used. So you can do use await, and there is one more way to do is basically using await and async. Okay, so I guess that is all for this lecture. We'll try some coding examples to understand what we studied, and then we'll see the difference between async and async. We'll also see some code, right? So yeah, that's all for this lecture. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.